I have a special relationship with Alaric Holloway. For him, I helped him with work matters and dealt with troublesome women. Everyone said I was the woman who had been with Alaric the longest. He also promised me that he would marry me, until that car accident happened, and I was involved in the accident with his other lover. Having survived, I ended up receiving only a bank card from him. This is compensation for all these years. Take the money and leave. It was then that I realized Alaric had always seen me as nothing more than a golden canary for his amusement. I went to the cemetery and gently touched the photo on the tombstone, which resembled Alaric. Thaddeus Holloway, I really miss you. I can't go on anymore. Alaric lost control of his emotions. You were just using me as a replacement, weren't you? After coming out of surgery, I spent 7 days in the ICU. When I saw Alaric again, he was in his office with Isolde Blackwood. You're being so nice to me. Will Serafina Whitlock cause trouble when she wakes up? What's there to fear? Even if she wakes up, she won't dare to cause trouble with me. She's just a mistress. I opened my eyes and couldn't believe what I heard. Alaric's promises made me feel like I was different from them. But then my head started throbbing violently, and every part of my body felt like it was being eaten away, with a stinging pain at the wound sites. I was about to turn and leave when Alaric opened the door. When he saw me, he just glanced over with a cold, indifferent expression. You're finally back at work. Good, you'll handle the meeting with Orson Rutherford this afternoon. My throat tightened. Alaric, don't you know what kind of person Orson is? If you're not going, should I send Isolde instead? Alaric's expression was grim, clearly displeased. Isolde emerged from the office, her collar open, her face flushed, as if she'd just been through something intense. Alaric said, It's all because Orson is too lecherous. That's why he doesn't want me to go. She swayed her hips as she walked toward me, her eyes scanning me as if looking for something amiss. Alaric smiled at her, after hearing her words, and gently picked her up. Someone as precious as you. How could I let anyone else touch you? After saying that, he hugged Isolde even tighter. Isolde laughed happily, snuggling into Alaric's embrace. But when she turned to look at me, Alaric's expression grew impatient, his eyes flashing with anger. Alaric, I'm truly sorry. I'll do my best to complete the task you've given me. I cried softly as I apologized to him. However, my apology only made Alaric's expression grow even more grim. Tonight, the Holloway Group hosted a banquet. In the past, I had always been Alaric's companion. This time, however, he brought along his favorite, Isolde. I saw the old dress that was brought for me. It smelled strongly and was even a bit dirty. Isolde's dress, on the other hand, was clearly a high-end, custom-made piece. When Alaric saw me, he said with a mocking tone, Your outfit really suits you. Today's star is Isolde. Just dress like this and play your supporting role well. Oh, and Isolde can't drink, so remember to drink for her. Isolde gave me a smug smile. Alaric seemed to have forgotten that I had gotten into an accident to protect his lover. Glasses of wine were handed to me one after another, before I could react. I leaned against the wall, feeling like I was going to vomit, cold sweat pouring down my body. A chubby man joked, I heard Serafina can hold her liquor. How come you can't handle just a few cups? As he spoke, he placed his hand on my waist. My stomach churned, and I ended up vomiting all over Orson. Serafina, how could you do that to Orson? Apologize to him right now. Isolde suddenly shouted while Alaric frowned, waiting for my reaction. It's okay. Come on, Serafina, can you help me change clothes? Then you can apologize to me properly later. I held my aching stomach and looked at Alaric. Isolde was playfully looking at me from my arms, while Alaric had a cold expression on his face. All right, Orson. Alaric heard this and crushed the wine glass in his hand. Blood flowed out, startling Isolde, who cried out in concern for Alaric. Alaric walked away with a cold expression, each step seeming to carry anger. Orson reached out his hand to me, and I placed mine in his palm. Everyone respects Orson, as long as you're happy. That's all that matters. As soon as the words left my mouth, everything around me began to sway, and my vision slowly grew blurry before I fainted. When I woke up again, I found myself in the storage room. The janitor told me that everyone had been scared away by me. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh sarcastically. I had fainted, and no one cared about my life or death. Looking at the time, I decided to call a car and head to the Holloway family slowly. Leaning against the car window, the pain in my body made me feel very uncomfortable, and I couldn't help but shed large tears. Thaddeus, I really miss you. When I returned to the villa, Alaric was holding Isolde and drinking from the same cup. Hearing the noise, he slowly turned his head to look at me. How long have you been gone? Why are you back so soon? How are you taking care of Orson? I didn't say anything. If he had stayed a little longer, maybe he would have seen what happened next. But never mind, he wouldn't care about me anyway. Since you couldn't handle Orson's affairs properly, get down on your knees and clean the area around you thoroughly. Alaric said coldly, flinging a towel heavily at my feet. I knelt down, picked up the towel, and began scrubbing the floor. As I was about to faint again, with darkness closing in, Alaric instinctively took a step forward. Isolde's voice was teasing. Alaric, look at her. Orson definitely wouldn't like this. But she's enjoying it. It's really hard to watch. Alaric stopped, his hand suspended in the air, a look of disgust on his face, then he withdrew his hand. I began to breathe heavily, my head pounding. I bit my lower lip and forced myself to stand up. Isolde grabbed Alaric's arm and said, Alaric, I want some brownies. Can you make her make some for me? Hurry up and make them. Alaric shouted at me, his eyes filled with disgust. I dragged my tired body to the kitchen, enduring the pain as I prepared the complicated brownies for her. I placed the brownies on the table, but Alaric knocked the plate over. What is this? Even a dog wouldn't eat this. After saying that, Alaric called the pastry chef, who brought the best ingredients. Alaric was very attentive to every one of Isolde's needs, even hiring several pastry chefs to satisfy her. I stood there, frozen, unable to move, seeing how well I treat Isolde. Do you feel hurt inside? Alaric smiled slightly, his gaze sweeping over me. I spoke calmly, it's my fault. I didn't do a good job. I admitted my mistake again, but all I got in return was Alaric's displeased expression. So you're admitting you're jealous of how well I treat Isolde, right? I plan to marry her? You've been by my side for so many years, and haven't gotten anything in return. You must feel a bit disappointed, right? His tone was urgent, as if he desperately wanted me to respond. I turned my head and replied casually, Alaric, seeing you happy makes me truly happy. I dared not say that this was also Thaddeus's wish, so it's also my wish. Hearing this, Alaric's eyes turned slightly red, and he punched the wall behind me with all his strength. It was clear he was angry, but he was trying to control himself, seeming unwilling to let it go. Alaric, the pastry chef you hired made something delicious. Try some. Isolde came out of the kitchen and held a piece of cake to his lips. Alaric opened his mouth like a robot, and Isolde kept urging him not to be angry because of her. Alaric shifted his gaze away from her and remained silent for a long time. Isolde paused for a moment, then glared at me. The next day, a post suddenly appeared in the company group chat, detailing what happened between Orson and me, accompanied by many pictures. My colleagues started discussing it heatedly in the group chat. Serafina had worked with Alaric for so many years, yet she suddenly wanted to be with an old man. Was it because Alaric had neglected her? Was she still at the company just to cling to Alaric? It really didn't look good, but to be honest, Serafina's face couldn't compare to Isolde's beauty. It was only natural for Alaric to have a change of heart. Seeing this, I turned off my phone. After taking a painkiller, I took a taxi to the company. I placed my resignation letter on Alaric's desk and froze, feeling as though I'd been struck by lightning. I choose Hangzhou for the wedding? That was where Thaddeus left us forever. His grave is now in Hangzhou. I was planning to send you an invitation, but I guess you've already seen it. Alaric's voice came from behind me, and I looked at him, tears streaming down my face. Alaric clearly wasn't pleased with my current state, furrowing his brows at me. I told you to take care of Isolde and Hangzhou? So why are you looking like this? I lowered my head and bit my lower lip. Alaric was about to say something else, but upon hearing my sobs, he slowly closed the door. Why are you crying? His tone was gentle, a rare display of emotion. Don't be sad. If you don't want to do this, I won't force you. He looked at me helplessly, a hint of worry in his eyes. Over the years I've been by Alaric's side, I've helped him reject many women. No matter what happened, I've never shed a tear. But I can't accept Alaric marrying someone else in Hangzhou. That city holds the memories of Thaddeus and me, and it's the source of my pain. I snapped back to reality and looked up at Alaric. Can I leave right after the wedding? Alaric's breathing slowed, and he stared at me like a trapped animal. Do you really want to leave that badly? I nodded and pointed to the wedding time on the invitation, confirming it with Alaric. As long as he gets married, my mission is complete. After returning home, I started packing and headed straight to Hangzhou. I dragged several suitcases behind Alaric and Isolde. Alaric suddenly turned to look at me and said, "Aren't you studying in Hangzhou? If there's someone you want to see, go ahead." His tone sounded like he was doing me a favor, but he forgot that I didn't know anyone else there, except for Thaddeus, but he was already dead. I didn't say anything and returned to my room, where tears streamed down my face as I fell asleep. The next morning, I heard the voices of Alaric's friends. "Serafina is still following you? Alaric really has a way with women. What are you talking about? Serafina is just someone who likes to flatter people." Everyone joked around, and Alaric didn't say anything. I stood up, opened the door, and walked out of the room, pretending no one noticed me. Alaric half closed his eyes and looked at me, slowly exhaling a smoke ring. "Can't you at least say hello when you see someone?" I greeted everyone as Alaric had instructed, and he finally smiled in satisfaction. "Zhu Ji, you've really taught Serafina well. She can't live without me," he said confidently. "That's right. I've dedicated so many years to Alaric, poured all my heart and soul into him, and even my life wouldn't matter." Just as I was about to leave, Alaric suddenly grabbed my hand. The wound hurt badly, and I couldn't help but cry out. Alaric was startled and immediately pulled his hand back. "Orson can touch you, but I touch you once and you react like this." He clenched his teeth, not even bothering to show any annoyance this time. Seeing his expression, I felt confused. Doesn't he know that the injuries on my body were caused by a car accident? But it was him who told the doctor to save Isolde first. Wasn't it? The atmosphere became awkward, and Alaric's friends pushed me away. I had only been gone for a short while when their voices reached me again. "Zhu Ji, what's so special about this woman? Just give her some money and let her leave. Don't give her too much, she's already been with an older man. So she's not worth that much." I remained expressionless, walking ahead, when Alaric's voice drifted over. "You're right. A woman who's been with older men is worthless." The wedding proceeded as planned. By the seaside in Hangzhou, the sea breeze brought blessings to their love. The ground was covered in roses and a red carpet, and the air was filled with a sweet fragrance. On the stage, Alaric and Isolde were exchanging rings. I couldn't help but reach out to my wrist. "Thaddeus, I've fulfilled your wish." My smile couldn't be contained, and my eyes sparkled. However, Alaric stood there frozen, his expression grim. He wondered why I was smiling and felt a bit anxious. Seeing the light in my eyes, Alaric felt an indescribable emotion. He hadn't handed the ring to Isolde yet, and she turned to look at me. Isolde realized what had happened and couldn't hold back any longer. She dropped the flowers she was holding and said, "Serafina, today is my wedding day, and you're still trying to attract Alaric. Do you really need a man that much?" The people below began to whisper, criticizing her behavior. Isolde called the security guards to have me removed from the wedding venue. I had only taken a few steps when I suddenly realized my bracelet had fallen to the ground. I hurriedly broke free and knelt down to search for it. Alaric furrowed his brows, but Isolde suddenly ran down from the stage and held up my bracelet. "Is this what you're looking for?" I pleaded with her cautiously. "Please give it back to me." Then kneel down and beg me, "Bow your head and admit your mistake. And I'll give it back to you." I knelt down without hesitation, and Isolde smiled triumphantly. She played with the bracelet, seemingly puzzled by why I would go to such lengths for it. This was something Thaddeus left behind. I pleaded with her again, but Isolde turned away, facing the sea, and threw the bracelet into the water. "Since you're leaving, don't even think about taking anything Alaric bought for you, including this bracelet." Before she could finish speaking, I jumped into the sea. I couldn't lose this bracelet. It was what Thaddeus had left for me. To retrieve the bracelet, I completely forgot that I couldn't swim. I struggled desperately in the water, feeling someone pulling me toward the shore. But I kept swimming toward the sea. The bodyguard grabbed my hand, and the wounds on my body began to ache again. The seawater was tinged with bright red, and I felt helpless, able only to cry. I didn't find the bracelet and felt like I was losing Thaddeus. In a daze, I found myself at Thaddeus's grave. I clung tightly to the tombstone and cried bitterly. "Thaddeus, I really miss you. I've fulfilled everything you wanted. Can I come find you? We'll be together forever." A pair of strong hands pulled me away from Thaddeus's tombstone. Alaric's face was as cold as ice, but his eyes were red like fire. He suddenly appeared before me. He asked slowly, "Serafina, do you think I'm not even worth as much as a dead person?" My whole body felt icy cold as I looked into Alaric's hollow, lifeless eyes. I stepped back from Alaric and asked, Alaric, shouldn't you be with your new wife? You ruined our wedding, and now you're here, crying over a grave like you're mourning someone who's already dead. He glanced disdainfully at the tombstone. While I stood in front of him, if you want me to apologize to Isolde, I will. As long as you're happy, Thaddeus will be happy too. I didn't wait for Alaric's response and left the cemetery. Alaric stood there for a while, staring blankly at the tombstone. Suddenly, he realized that he didn't know me at all. All he knew was that I would express all my emotions and vulnerability in front of the grave. Forget it, let's end this. I returned to the hotel and looked for Isolde in the crowd. The guests hadn't left yet, and when they saw me, their eyes were full of contempt. I didn't need to listen to what they were saying to know what they were talking about. I couldn't find the person I was looking for here. I turned to go into my room, but Alaric called out to me. His gaze fell on Orson, who was walking toward us as if he wanted me to notice. Aren't you going to say hello to Orson? Didn't you enjoy what happened that night? Orson heard Alaric's words and immediately hurried to explain. Alaric, even though my reputation isn't great, I wouldn't be interested in a woman who fainted. Seeing the suspicion in Alaric's eyes, Orson looked at me with a complicated expression. That day, I fainted. I spoke calmly, and Orson sighed in relief. Alaric remained silent for a moment, before calling his assistant to investigate what happened that night. Orson didn't want to get involved anymore, and left under the pretext of having something else to do. I continued searching for Isolde. Even Orson doesn't approve of you. Why do you still want to leave me? Alaric, you're already married? I lowered my head and kept walking. Staying by Alaric's side, I had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him to get married, waiting for him to be happy. I have no family, no one to care about. Thaddeus was my only support. I always felt unimportant, but Thaddeus made me realize I actually have value. He was like a ray of light, illuminating the mess I was. In the end, he left, leaving me alone in Hangzhou to live a lonely life. When I found Isolde, she was sitting on the rooftop enjoying the breeze. The ground around her was littered with empty bottles, and her eyes were swollen and red, clearly having cried recently. Before I could say a word, she suddenly ran toward me and grabbed my neck. Serafina, you stole someone else's man. Does that feel good? Her nails dug deeply into my neck, and I slowly closed my eyes, feeling my breathing grow increasingly difficult. At that moment, I finally breathed in fresh air. Alaric pulled Isolde away, looking quite unhappy. Isolde, she came to apologize to you? I was a bit surprised, my gaze lingering on Alaric. I thought he would let Isolde continue to torment me this time. Isolde cried bitterly, saying, I was so looking forward to this wedding. And she ruined it. Do you know what people are saying about me outside? She cried and screamed in Alaric's arms, while Alaric only told me to leave first. Alaric watched my departing figure and pulled me back into the room. What should have been the first night of our spring wedding, he spent the entire night smoking. An assistant knocked on the door and brought in the wine Alaric had requested. Alaric, here are all the documents you asked for. The assistant placed the folder on the table. Inside were records of my entire past. Before I was 10, I had a happy family. After my parents passed away, I was sent to an orphanage. At 12, I was adopted by foster parents. But they treated me badly, so I chose to run away. Later, I lived with a homeless grandmother for several years, working odd jobs and relying on social assistance to finish high school. Then I was admitted to Hangcheng University, where I met Alaric. Alaric felt a sharp pain in his heart. He took a deep drag on his cigarette and said, Look into it. Who is that person? He extinguished the cigarette and took a large sip of wine. Alaric, there's more here. You might want to take a look. The assistant respectfully handed him a tablet and closed the door. When he played the video, Alaric's tears blurred his vision. After I fainted that day, Orson was so scared he left immediately. The janitor took me to the break room, but didn't even give me a sip of water. It felt like everyone was waiting for something bad to happen to me. That day, it felt like I was dreaming. I dreamed of the first time I met Thaddeus, but the next scene was the day Thaddeus left. In the surveillance footage, I helplessly called out Thaddeus's name, my face covered in tears. Alaric held his breath, already having some suspicions. He stood up, almost losing his balance. Alaric took the car keys and followed the GPS to find me. I was sitting in a park. It was late at night, and there was no one on the streets. I had no money and didn't know where to go. Alaric stood behind me for a long time, speaking in a hoarse voice. We have to go back tomorrow? Why haven't you packed your things yet? I turned around. Repeating as if in a trance, you said that after the wedding, you'd let me leave. He lowered his head, his eyes filled with sorrow. Your resignation hasn't been approved yet? And the resignation procedures aren't complete, so you have to go back to work. Alaric, all you need to do is sign your name, and the paperwork will be finalized. I stared ahead and spoke softly. Alaric didn't expect me to say that. His hands trembled slightly as he slowly approached me. He knelt down, his eyes meeting mine, filled with helplessness. Are you angry because of what happened that day? Let the past stay in the past. I've seen everything you've done for me over the years. I won't blame you. He grabbed my hand, but I gently pulled it away. Alaric's words of persuasion sounded so distant, I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. Alaric, can you let me go? Don't you love me? You love me so much. How can you bear to leave like this? Have I been bad to you? I'll give you anything you want. Everyone thinks I've been good to you. Why are you causing such a scene? Alaric's condition was deteriorating rapidly, as if he couldn't hold on much longer. I suddenly felt a void in my heart, and tears flowed uncontrollably. The time I spent with you was happy and fulfilling. My mission is almost complete. To fulfill his wish, my life has been worthwhile. I forced a smile, but Alaric clung tightly to my arm. He seemed to realize something, his eyes widening. Is it because of that person who died? I answered seriously. He hasn't left us. He's always alive in my heart, always by my side. Isn't that what a dead person is? Should I have someone dig up his grave and show you his bones? I bit my lower lip and slapped Alaric across the face. I insisted, he's still alive. Alaric was stunned by my slap and glared at me fiercely. He said, the dead person is already dead. Can't you tell the difference between the living and the dead? Alaric continued to ask me, desperately wanting an answer. Does a person who has already died matter more to you than I do? I froze, completely forgetting to breathe. I tried to speak, but no words came out. The living have body temperature. That day, Thaddeus came to give me my admission notice. To celebrate my departure from Hangzhou, he had specially prepared a large stuffed bear. He said he couldn't be by my side, but the bear and the bracelet could always accompany me. The large bear blocked Thaddeus's view while crossing the street, and the driver who hit him was drunk. Thaddeus died on the spot with no chance for rescue. That day, only the bracelet remained. At 12 years old, Thaddeus and a homeless old woman helped me find a home. But I left him behind in Hangzhou forever. My thoughts drifted further and further away. However, Alaric seemed to have lost patience with me. From my expression, he understood everything, so he pushed me away and slowly backed up. I understood, Serafina. I understood everything. That night, Alaric left Hangzhou. On the plane, his assistant handed him the latest investigation results. Alaric threw the folder into the trash bin, his eyes betraying a hint of coldness. He devoted all his time to work, even skipping social gatherings. Isolde had invited him out to relax on multiple occasions, but he always refused. Alaric, today is my birthday. Can't you spend a little time with me? Serafina always spends her birthday alone. Why can't you do the same? Alaric's tone was cold, and Isolde looked at him with tears in her eyes. Serafina is still Serafina. You don't like her the most, so why are you comparing me to her? Alaric looked away and stared at the pen in his hand. He didn't even notice that his hands were trembling when he heard my name. Alaric slowly closed his eyes, trying to calm himself down. When he opened them again, he saw Isolde's eyes filled with hurt. He spread his arms wide and hugged Isolde tightly. Closing his eyes, he imagined me feeling very sad because I had lost my bracelet. His lips trembled slightly, and his nose felt a little sore. Alaric celebrated Isolde's birthday and bought her a necklace. Upon returning home, Alaric noticed a package at the front door. The recipient's information on the package was blank. Isolde, upon seeing this, kicked the package in frustration. Alaric's expression changed immediately, and he quickly pulled Isolde away. Alaric, this might be hers, she's gone. What use is it to keep it? She wasn't that woman, her name was Serafina. After saying that, Alaric seemed to remember me from that day. I told him over and over that Thaddeus was already gone. Then he suddenly seemed to understand why I was so adamant. His eyes filled with pain and numbness. Isolde opened the package and found several notebooks inside. What is this? Let's just throw it away. She felt it was dirty, brushed the dust off her hands, and the notebook fell to the ground. Alaric reached down to pick it up, but Isolde stepped on the notebook and pulled him back. Preventing him from taking it, Alaric suddenly felt irritated and asked, "Are you really taking this fake wedding so seriously? Do you really think you're Mrs. Jiang?" Isolde heard this and her face turned red. She quickly covered her face and ran away. Alaric carefully picked up the notebook and wiped off the shoe prints on it. "Thaddeus, I'll protect you, Alaric, and I'll take care of your brother too." The Holloway family once had two sons, but most people only knew Alaric. In fact, even Alaric had long forgotten what his older brother looked like. The words on the first page were faint, but they still surprised Alaric. After reading the line, he even forgot to breathe. The notebook seemed more like Thaddeus's. Turning to the first page, it read Hang Cheng. Alaric hurriedly closed the notebook and rushed to the airport. Once on the plane, he read through the contents of the notebook again. The events recorded in the notebook took place when he and Thaddeus were 18. When he arrived at the cemetery, the sun was high in the sky. The name and photo on the tombstone were clear, and Alaric nearly stumbled at the grave. I saw Alaric from afar, walked slowly toward him, and placed my hand on his shoulder. Alaric saw me and clearly startled, as if he hadn't expected to see me here. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I placed a bouquet of flowers at Thaddeus's grave and helped clear the fallen leaves. Alaric's mind was filled with astonishment. I gently touched Thaddeus's name on the tombstone and finally fixed my gaze on the photo. "I should be asking you, how did you end up here?" Alaric's lips trembled as he threw the notebook beside me and shouted excitedly, "You've never been near me because you love me, have you?" I looked down and realized it was Thaddeus's notebook. After the car accident, many of Thaddeus's belongings went missing. I hired a private detective to find them, but forgot to update the address. I held my notebook carefully, cherishing it deeply. Alaric took out the notebook and tore out every page. I clung to him tightly, begging him not to do this. "Alaric, please don't. This is proof that Thaddeus existed. Thaddeus, you're always like this. Am I destined to be your replacement?" I turned my head away, unable to face Alaric's intense gaze. Alaric's eyes were bloodshot, and he gripped my shoulders tightly, forcing me to look at him. Thaddeus was sold to Hang Cheng. His life wasn't happy either. Two unhappy people met and helped each other, finding some warmth. Thaddeus's diary started with him missing home, but later only mentioned me. When he helped me pick up my admission notice, he wrote two simple sentences. "I will spend the rest of my life with Serafina." I don't like written words. In truth, I love her. The diary fluttered in the wind, turning to the next page. The moment Thaddeus and I first met, I wrote my name there. Alaric understood everything. He stared intently at the notebook, his forehead veins bulging, his teeth clenched. "Serafina, tell me, did you get close to me just because of my brother?" I nodded silently, unable to meet Alaric's eyes. To my surprise, Alaric suddenly smiled, tears streaming down his face. "You're not without feelings, you just gave your heart to my brother. Were you looking forward to this day, finding it amusing to see me being played?" Alaric's voice was hoarse, sounding pained. I shook my head, but Alaric kept smiling until he felt himself growing weak. Unable to do anything but gaze helplessly at Thaddeus's photo, over the years, he had felt our relationship was up and down. Alaric looked up at me, his voice trembling. "Serafina, have you ever loved me? Even a little?" My heart raced, and I didn't know how to answer him. Alaric saw all the answers in my face. I knelt before Thaddeus's grave, tears welling up in my eyes, silently staring at Thaddeus. I whispered, "Thaddeus wants you to be happy. You loved Isolde very much. You two would have been very happy together." Alaric gently touched Thaddeus's photo, feeling as though the person in the photo was still smiling at him. He clenched his fists tightly, as if plunged into endless darkness. "All the things you've done for me over the years, was it all because of my brother?" I answered slowly, "Yes." Alaric shook his head urgently. "No, that's impossible. You were clearly jealous when I interacted with those women. You still care about me, right?" I thought of the women around Alaric, each of them filled with hostility toward me. Among them, the one who treated me the worst was Isolde. In the face of her constant provocation, I chose to endure. In Alaric's eyes, this was somehow a sign of love. "If I've caused you to misunderstand me, I'm truly sorry." I apologized again, and Alaric wiped the tears from his face. Those red eyes stared at me like a rabbit's. And he finally saw my sadness. Alaric wanted to hug me, but at Thaddeus's grave, I couldn't bring myself to do it. My heart had once been completely given to someone else. I could never love anyone else as passionately as I had before. Alaric suddenly grabbed my hand and took me to the beach. That's what my brother left behind? Right? His voice was loud as he undressed. I held onto Alaric, preventing him from entering the water. Fear overwhelmed me. I feared something terrible might happen and tried to pull Alaric away. His expression softened and he jumped into the water. Without thinking, I followed him. Alaric saw me and shouted, pulling me back onto the shore. "You're bleeding?" "Serafina, don't you feel any pain?" he suddenly shouted, pulling up my clothes. The scars on my body were exposed to Alaric, and I quickly covered them with my clothes. Alaric was clearly shocked by those terrible scars. His hands trembled uncontrollably. "Serafina, your body." I didn't say anything. Alaric told his assistant to find a doctor to treat my wounds. The wounds reopened, and the doctor said they needed to be sutured again. After being given anesthesia, I was taken into the operating room. When I came out of the operating room, I saw Thaddeus asking the doctor about my condition. He fed me water, and my favorite fruits were placed beside the hospital bed. He patiently wiped my face. I coughed lightly, trying to speak. "Thaddeus, you're back. Are you here to take me away?" The man in front of me froze, gripping my hand tightly. A tear fell onto my wrist. "I've always been here, Serafina. I'll take you home." When I woke up again, Alaric was by my bedside, and on the bed next to mine lay another person. I turned my head and was startled to see Isolde covered in blood. She was covered in blood, her face pale. Alaric blocked my view, his eyes revealing a hint of calm. "Serafina, I'm sorry." He told me that everything he had done before was to attract my attention, to make me like him more, but he had underestimated my stubbornness and didn't understand me at all. "Serafina, I promise I'll get to know you better from now on. I'll always be by your side, okay?" Before I could answer, Alaric started coughing violently. When his hand touched my face, I could feel how hot he was. That's when I realized Alaric had a fever. Before I could say anything, Isolde weakly said, "Serafina, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you get involved. I shouldn't have arranged that car accident, and I shouldn't have kept opposing you time and again. I really hurt you, and I'm truly sorry." Before Isolde could finish speaking, Alaric coldly ordered someone to take her away. Alaric's hand was trembling slightly as he pulled out a bracelet. "I still haven't found my brother's bracelet. Do you think this one will do?" His tone was earnest, sounding somewhat helpless. I closed my eyes, feeling a sharp pain in my heart. "Serafina, I love you. You may not love me, but that doesn't matter. My love is enough. Serafina, please stay. Give me a chance to make up for my mistakes." He held my hand, but I simply took the bracelet from Alaric. When I looked at him again, there was only sorrow and resentment in his eyes. Alaric left the hospital angrily, but still hired a nurse to take care of me. I healed my wounds and had the scars removed. After being discharged from the hospital, I spent a long time at Thaddeus's grave. Then I returned to my previous life and rented a house near the cemetery. After a month of peaceful life, Alaric suddenly appeared outside my rented house one day. He was wearing a mask that looked exactly like Thaddeus's, holding a sparkling diamond ring in his hand. "Serafina, I don't care if you see me as a substitute for your brother. As long as you're willing to marry me, I can be your brother's substitute forever." The mask fit perfectly on Alaric's face, and in the dim light, I couldn't see anything amiss. I touched his face, almost swaying, until a searing pain began to tear at my heart. I suddenly realized that Thaddeus was really gone, but I had always felt he was right beside me. It was all just a fixation in my mind. I shook my head and said, "Alaric, you can't spend your whole life like this." After Alaric left, he never appeared again. One day, a delivery brought a document. I opened it and found it was an asset transfer agreement. Alaric had transferred most of his assets to me. I thought he must have let go of everything, so I went back to my daily life, until one day I saw a news article. Isolde had apparently anticipated that Alaric would abandon her one day, so she sold a lot of the company's confidential information. Since Alaric failed to fulfill the contract on time, he was sued in court. In the end, due to commercial fraud, Alaric was sentenced to prison. After reading the news, I went to the prison to see Alaric. I smiled at him for the first time and saw his hand trembling as he held the phone. "Serafina, you must live well." I nodded firmly and began telling Alaric about my daily life. As he listened, he genuinely felt happy for me, and tears welled up in the corners of his eyes. The 5-minute visitation time passed quickly, and I left the prison. The warm sunlight bathed me, and I finally understood Thaddeus's wish. From now on, I will carry Thaddeus's wish with me and strive to live my own life.